welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do crazy stupid stuff, but instead do really smart, meaningful stuff because, hey man, we are spending time, effort, energy on marketing. So shall we make it count? I feel like we shall. And today we have a wonderful friend of the show back for a follow-up episode. And perhaps a book feature. But this is fun because one of the things that I love that we have the opportunity to do shows like this and other shows is to see how the conversation evolves. And it was funny because Kevin and I were talking right before this, and he was like, "That last episode was in January." And I was like, "Really? That's a long time ago." There's a lot of things that come up in a year. And so I'm really excited to continue this conversation. Well, might see if you haven't checked out Kevin's other episode, that's fine. You can go back and look at that later. Apparently it was in January of 2025. So you can go and look at that date-wise. But the point is, when we're talking about things like our topic of today, which is tapping into brand desire, this is like an evolving conversation, and there's different things that come up, and then there's different things that happen in the market, and there's different things that happen with consumers, and there's like a whole evolution of things that are happening here. And so it's my honor and privilege to have my friend Kevin back in the conversation with us today. And while this might look like a conversation for just two people, it is not just a conversation for just two people. No matter where you're tuning in, there is this fancy comments section. So if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're at today, there is a comment section, and we would love for you to get into the comments. So when we use the phrase brand desire, what does that bring up for you? Okay. Have you heard that before? Is desire desirable when it comes to branding? How are we talking about that? How are we planning around that? How are we strategizing that? Have we not? Bring it all into the conversation. Bring your questions, your perspectives, your insights, your experiences, and join us in the conversation today. It allows this conversation to be more robust for all of us, including us on the stage today. That's all that out of the way. Let's get to learn a little bit more. If you haven't met Kevin, let's learn a little bit more about Kevin. So Kevin, tell us a little bit more about you, and let's talk, just jump right into, once you do your intro, but then let's jump right into this concept of brand desire, because I mean, I feel like desire has maybe been limited to specific areas historically, and we're bringing it into branding. So tell us how you got there.
Well, first of all,
the short story.
It's been a long time since January, and I'm glad we've had lots of time to chat between then and now. And I am very happy to be back on the show with you. It is such an awesome time chatting with you every time. I am a non-traditional brand strategist. I started my career like many people listening who are in the marketing and branding field, working at ad agencies or a brand consult. I worked at a brand consultancy. I had this amazing experience to work at a sonic branding music studio. And by the way, your intro music, it would really good.
Custom creation for this show. I will put the who it's by in the show notes.
Yeah, well,
everyone should know and go. I don't think he does custom music anymore, which is why I don't overly promote it. But
understood.
Yes, awesome.
But it was definitely done to a brief with you in mind, so I love it. When working at that sonic branding music studio for a few years, I met some incredible folks who I now affectionately refer to as my behavioral science mentors, and they taught me a lot about the human brain and how our brain works and the instinctive emotional responses that our brain has that sometimes, occasionally, translate into conscious feelings, associations, and behaviors. And I was thinking, when we were doing all this work, when we created a research capability, when we ran dozens of research studies and award-winning studies, we were having so much fun. And I'm sitting there in the studio and enjoying being part of the creation of music and sound, but also thinking back to my days as a traditional brand strategist at a large global brand consultancy and thinking, why did this conversation about how the brain works never come up? And why did we spend so much time sitting in a conference room thinking about what was best for our client and looking at other brands' best practices, without actually doing more customer research or understanding what motivates customers, or spending very little time understanding customer insights? And it occurred to me that this inextricable link between our instinctive emotional responses and brand desire was largely missing from traditional approaches that are out there. I'm not, it was ignored completely, but I'm saying what I learned from my behavioral science mentors about how the brain works and the neuroscience behind how the brain works and the more effective ways to understand people and their motivations so that brands can be more um, that was all information that I took on board, and I was like, we've got to do something with this. So I left the studio. I created my company, Limbic Brand Evolution. I created what I call Limbic Sparks brand strategy, which puts emotional insight at the center of how brands attract and retain customers. And I published a book this year.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this, because again, like, I feel like when we talk about marketing, we talk about there's a lot of words that get thrown around, right? Brand is one of them, right? So brand is something that is like very commonly, we want to have a brand strategy and we brand this, brand that, visibility. We talk about ideal target profiles, and there's a lot of really common language, but I wouldn't say that I've historically heard the word desire included in that batch of language. So when we look at, and we're not going to list all of the language because we'll spend the entire show doing that, but Kevin is very familiar with it. So when you think about the like common phrases that are thrown around in marketing today, and the difference between maybe the energies in which those are being shared or the historic knowledge of what those are, and you look at that compared to this concept of creating brand desire, what's the difference between those two?
I have a lot of thoughts and opinions that are woven throughout the book and codified when it comes to language in marketing and branding. And I believe that some of the biggest challenges that are causing the use of old approaches that do not lean into customer insight are rooted in language. So throughout the entire book, there are definitions of that I have for different aspects of the process and different things. I define brand, I define this. I also have a full glossary that catalogs all that at the end of the book. And when you think about the language of our industry, we think about words like unique selling proposition and proof points. And yeah, the old USP and proof points and reasons to believe. This language that we're using dates back to decades old frameworks in brand strategy that have been handed down from generation to generation. And unfortunately, they are causing brand leaders to miss opportunities to get customer insight into the process. And here's why: because words have meaning. And when we're talking about a unique selling proposition, what does that inspire us to do? It inspires us to sit in a room and figure out what is unique about our brand and how should we sell it. And when we say proof points, what are the proof points and reasons to believe that should be on the creative brief? What we're saying is, how can we prove to people that this is a product that they should want? And what are the reasons that they should believe what we're saying? And these types of this language is driving people down a path. So as part of the work that I'm doing, I'm introducing some new language. One of the pieces of language, which is the what I'd call the first deliverable of insights discovery, which is understanding people and their motivations. And by the way, emotional motivations are the driving forces behind our decisions and behaviors. That's a glossary definition right out of the book. And if it makes sense to you that understanding people's motivations, the driving forces behind their decisions and behaviors, is important to understand before spending money on marketing to them, then there's a good reason to think about that kind of a word and its definition. One of the first deliverables of the brand strategy work that I do with my clients and that I explain how to do for anyone to follow in the book leads to what I call the shared emotional motivation. And the shared emotional motivation is part of the creative brief, the very first part of the creative brief, that helps you understand what is the brand and its customer or prospect, both, what are they both trying to achieve individually and together. So if you're a performing arts center and you recognize that your role in the world, your why, let's say, which is not a brand strategy framework, and we can have a whole conversation on that, but your why is to put on is to demonstrate this passion you have for entertaining experiences. And then you recognize that your customers also have a passion for entertaining experiences. You can use that as the first bookend of this brand strategy. And then we get to another definition, which is the brand idea or the tagline, which there's a very wide and broad set of definitions around what a brand idea and a tagline is in the industry. But I define it more narrowly as a compelling brand benefit and invitation. Compelling brand benefit and invitation. And if you know what the shared emotional motivation is, then you can get to a compelling benefit and invitation to let people know, hey, you can come and get exactly what we know you're looking for right here. We understand what you're motivated to achieve in life. We understand what you want to get out of an experience of our kind of company or our kind of brand, and you can get that right here. So for the AT&T Performing Arts Center, a big, large performing arts center in Dallas, their shared emotional motivation with their audiences was passion for entertaining experiences. And their brand idea used to be Staging the Amazing, which was a re-articulation of their why. But it's now yours to discover. Yours to discover is a welcoming, inviting brand benefit and invitation that lets them know where they can find those entertaining experiences and explore what they're passionate about. So changing definitions is a really important thing. I'll stop there and see where you want to go, because I just did a lot.
I was going to say, because I feel like there's at least 3 directions we can go.
And I was going to leave it to you as always, because you're the master of what to do next.
Okay, I want to talk about the invitations. This is like the thing that's standing out very big to me also, because when we look at marketing from a like promotional point of view and that like for us perspective,
Yep.
or about us, right? Like this is about me and let me show you about me because you care about me, but let's leave that for now. This concept of like a warm invitation. One of the things that I have said to people for many years about marketing is that marketing is about getting a yes. Right? I want to create a pattern of yes in marketing so that by the time I get to sales, people are already used to saying yes to me. But that means I also have to be like very aware of what my people want to say yes to, right? Yeah. What gets them excited to say yes. And I love the concept of an invitation because it's not a sale, right? This isn't about me selling you something. It's about me inviting you into something. But then by nature, I always think about it like party, right? I'm going to have a party. I'm going to send out invitations to a party. Can't make you come to a party. But if I've created enough reasons for you to want to come to the party, then you'll probably come to the party. But if I create a party and I don't send out invitations, nobody comes to my party.
Right.
So let's just flesh this out a little bit more, because I don't think that a lot of people are using their tagline as an opportunity to make an invitation. So what are some things that people could do to like look at a tagline or maybe even like an I help statement that they've been using today and kind of flip that on its head to turn it into an invitation?
Yeah. So the first way to start is to understand what people would be interested in going to. So for your party example, if you knew that your friends liked Mario Kart and you invited them to a Mario Kart party, that invitation might be more compelling than a Great Gatsby party for them in particular.
This is such a relevant example right now because my 7-year-old is all into Mario Kart, and all we've been doing for like the last 3 days is playing Mario Kart. But keep
See, I didn't even know that, but I've done a little insight.
Also, who doesn't love Mario Kart, right? Come on. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't love Mario Kart. Okay.
My daughters have Mario Kart parties with their friends all the time. That's why I thought of it. So
I literally did that, and I think I was pregnant with Nicholas at the time. So whatever, it would have been in my mid-30s, and a whole bunch of us were just like, let's play Mario Kart today. And there was like so many people showed up.
See? So you know that your crowd, that was a guess, but you shouldn't guess when coming up with customer insights. You really should poll the crowd and talk to them. But here's the thing, like when you're coming up with a brand idea, the first criteria is to say, are we talking about ourselves or are we inviting somebody into something, right? Are we talking about ourselves or are we inviting somebody into something? And that's such a crucial such a crucial step. Now, when you're inviting someone to something, the first thing you want to do is find out and make sure it's something that they actually want. So you're able. So, for instance, I was working with a supply chain management company, and there's a whole chapter in my book on the AT&T Performing Arts Center and exactly what we did and how we got there. And there's a whole chapter in my book on this company, which is called Blue Ridge. It's a supply chain management company, and they have a brand that is a SaaS platform in the inventory management space. They help you. If you're a warehouse manager, they help you have the optimal levels of inventory. When you have thousands of SKUs across multiple locations with seasonal variations, they can still help you get to a very high, like 95% accuracy level on the amount of inventory that you have in stock. And that's really important for companies like that, because when you have too much inventory on stock and it's not going anywhere, you're tying up cash flow. And when you don't have things in stock, the head of sales is not happy because things aren't there. So you, as a inventory manager without a piece of software, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how incredible you are at your job, you're in the unenviable position of being wrong more often than you'd like to be, because guessing, educated guessing based on years of experience, is still more challenging than using software that has predictability and all sorts of inputs. So their brand idea when I met them was, we put you at the center of supply chain success. And that was a fine brand idea. It was a benefit, but it was without deep customer insight and understanding what makes your brand special in the eyes of your customers. You are doing a little bit of, you're playing the field. You're offering information about your company or a broad-based benefit that is not too specific because you're not sure exactly where to go. And they recognize this. It's why they brought me on. They recognized that then their brand needed to be more precise in its marketing and tap into the motivations of people, which is why they brought me on. And I explored their customer base through a large handful of interviews with customers. And I also explored the reviews of their business through 77 reviews on on a website, a B2B website, where they had a 4.7 rating out of 5. So incredibly high reviews. But what was driving that? What was making their business so special? And we learned that the software helps people eliminate guesswork, that it helps them maximize inventory performance. And they have these software coaches that actually work with you to optimize the capability of the software and help you get the most out of it and answer questions when needed to run a specific type of report or find out new information or scenario plan. And these Lifeline coaches, this Lifeline service that they offer, was mentioned 25% of the time in the customer reviews as a high positive. And it wasn't even part of any question. It was just offered up 25% of the time. And one of the verbatims that we heard when interviewing customers was, before I had this software, I was the person who got in trouble at work because my numbers weren't always right and people were kind of unhappy with me more often than I'd like in my job. And then after the software, I was like the hero. I always have the accurate numbers. Everybody's looking to me for direction on what we need to purchase so that everything's in, and that made a big difference. And with that, those precise details of what this company does well from the voices of their customers and the motivations of the people who are using the software, we came up with a tagline, a brand idea, which is "Be Supply Chain Invincible." And "Be Supply Chain Invincible" expresses how people want to feel. It's inviting them into the feeling that they would like to have more often at work. And it allows them to then recognize that this brand might be something that they should be interested in. And again, when it comes to sparking brand desire, it's about igniting that first level of interest. The brand feels like it was designed with you in mind. It sparks interest. And then you can go investigate at deeper levels to understand the deeper levels of brand benefit and the features, and to make sure it's right for your business before you invest all the money in purchasing something like that. I mean, but sparking that interest, those initial seeds of desire is what we're trying to do.
Okay, so let me ask you this. My question's going to sound rhetorical, but let me ask it, and then I'll get to why I'm asking it. Is that inviting you in to funding my business? So like, if all I'm really looking for from my customers is their money, right? And I haven't really looked at my brand or my product or my solution from a what am I inviting people into point of view, but I'm just trying to get money in my pocket, right? I want as much money as possible. Like, I feel like there's an inherent issue there with the concept of an invitation. Now, is this something that only works with specific cultures of businesses? Is there like a transformation or a question asking direction that people can start going in if they're like, well, I've only ever looked at marketing to date as like closing a sale. I'm going to send an email and then people are going to buy stuff off of my email, and all I'm inviting them to do is buy a thing. I don't want to invite them into anything more than that. I just want them to buy a thing. Is there a process, or is it just like
absolutely
those companies?
Yeah, there's an in-depth process,
it's Kevin's process.
76,000 words of process.
So I guess
let me
don't want to go through the whole process, but like
I can explain some questions to answer your question. First of all, if you're in business and you think your job is just to sell without understanding your customers, you've got a bit of a problem off the bat, because nobody wants to be sold to. Nobody wants to feel your sales pressure. They only want to feel like you have something that will make their life or their business better, that'll help solve challenges that they're facing either consciously or subconsciously, or help them enjoy something more than they could have imagined. So if you're in business and you believe your job is simply selling, you've got a little bit of a challenge to start with. If you want to move from selling to inviting, we're talking about inviting not in the literal sense all the time. What we're saying is you're letting people know that the benefits they care most about can be found in your brand, in what you have to offer them. And the way you find that out, one of the ways you find that out is if you have a solid group of customers and they enjoy your product and service, one of the best things that you can learn from them is why they choose it. Because the reasons why they keep coming back to you for more are the most compelling benefits that you can then offer in your marketing to other customers who want those same benefits. So the way you get at that is you look for things in reviews. You look for what's rising to the top in terms of positives. You look for things. You talk with your customers. You can ask questions like, if this brand was to go away, what would you miss the most? You can say, if this product was a superhero, what would be its singular superpower? You can say, what are 3 words that describe how it makes you feel when you use this product? If you were to recommend this service to a friend, what would be the one thing you would say is the one reason why they should definitely use this service? So you can start to ask questions like this, and there are ways to ask questions rooted in behavioral science techniques that I explain throughout the book that will be better at getting you the kinds of answers that unearth the way people feel and the emotional benefits that they're looking for. So those are important things that you can learn how to do, so that then you can understand what are the most compelling emotional benefits that are addressing people's emotional motivations that you could then turn into benefits that your brand stands for.
And this is, I mean, you've probably heard it. If you've watched any other show, if people are watching right now, if they watched any other shows, there's a lot of times we come back to customer conversations in terms of information. But I also just want to specifically point out the difference between the level of question asking that we're talking about here and an NPS survey that is only going to ask somebody how likely they are to recommend your business. Like, it's nice to know that somebody is going to recommend you. But first of all, if you haven't done a good job of understanding what they're recommending you for, then what the value of that they'll recommend you is actually quite small in terms of the access to all of that information that you could get if you tried a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna like deep dive the marketing conversations and question asking here, but definitely
there's a whole as you know, Tracy, there's a whole chapter in my book on using research and what questions to ask and how to design research, and it introduces some techniques and some behavioral science methodologies that are really good at understanding subconscious emotion, which surveys can't necessarily do as well.
Right. And I mean, personally, I'm a huge fan of client conversations versus like a digital survey. While a digital survey might seem easier, if we're really looking at getting meaningful information out of people, a conversation can go a very long way. So just saying, we're going to leave that for now. But I want to touch on this kind of transition, because we're talking a lot about making the invitations, this transition of where you started out the conversation, where this is really about us. Here's what we know about us, and here's how we show it to the world. And this evolution from an about us conversation to a for you conversation, that this party is for you, this solution is for you, this product is for you. And in terms of, you touched on language quite a bit as well, and there's probably good definitions in the book, but like, what are some like key transitions in our language that we want to look for if our goal is to move from about us to for you?
So one of the things is, and this is a big problem, especially in B2B spaces, is there's a lot of jargon in marketing. There's a lot of familiar phrases that brands tend to use, because maybe they think that it's effective to say things like "your success is our business," and these phrases that we hear over and over again that are very jargony. In fact, I believe that jargon and use of cliches in business, in any kind of marketing copy, is a bit of a cop-out, because you're just grabbing phrases that you think people will respond to because they sound whatever. But in fact, they are so familiar that they're ignorable, and they might actually be a turnoff because it kind of says that you didn't take the time to write anything more proprietary or thoughtful. So one is get rid of jargon and cliches. The second is, when you are seeking insights about what matters most to your customers, you can use that language in the brand benefit copy, like we were talking about before. The brand benefit copy for that supply chain management company, there are 3 core benefits: eliminate guesswork, maximize inventory performance, and an unmatched partnership. We know from customer interviews, those are the 3 things that their customers appreciate the most. And it's regular, everyday language in a B2B setting that other people who will be buying their service or interested in their service will respond to, because it feels like it was designed with them in mind. Mm-hmm. The third thing is write in the first person. Like, don't have copy that says, I'm trying to come up with an example, but don't have copy that feels like you're talking to the world. Use language like "we're here for you." Your business is our priority. Like, we're here for you. Don't use language that feels stilted and corporate. Use language that feels like you're talking. People should feel when they read your copy like you're speaking directly to them, like it was designed with you in mind. So those are three of the things that you can start doing right away to create a better connection, a better emotional connection with a customer, a prospective customer who wants to feel like you really care about them and that you're not just selling them something. Forrester Research has documented that emotion is the largest driver of loyalty in the customer experience, which means that how a brand makes you feel in that experience is the biggest indicator of whether or not you're going to come back or not come back. They've also documented 3 feelings that people want to have most often. And it is not surprise and delight to most people's surprise. What it is, they want to feel respected, understood, and valued. They want to feel respected, understood, and valued. And if your copy, if your messaging and marketing, if your customer experience protocols help people feel those 3 things at all times, it's going to go a long way to having them be a repeatable customer.
Oh, okay. Every time you talk, I have like 3 different directions I want to go, and I have to pick.
How long do we have?
Very frustrating. I mean, technically, we can go for as long as we want. Okay, but I want to just like, we're talking about this language. One of the things that I also reference very often is like, this has to be language that you would use, right? So you mentioned, right, like just because someone else says it and you think it sounds good, right? Like, if nobody in your company would actually say that, if they were having a one-on-one conversation with a person, then is that something we would say? Debatable. But also, I want to just like layer in AI into this part of the conversation, because I think a lot of people, from like taglines to copy, are now like, okay, well, like let's take this idea, let's run it through AI, or even like this happened to me by accident the other day. Luckily, you can undo it very easily. But I was writing my LinkedIn article and I accidentally clicked on the optimize with AI thing. And like, I was terrified at what it came up with. It doesn't sound like me at all. Right?
No.
And I'm like all the concepts are there, but like, this is no. And a lot of people have been convinced now that AI can do a better job of making this sound good, quote unquote, sound good. And it's not your voice. So quick thoughts on using AI as part of this part of the process.
Well, just as you described, I would highly recommend against it. I feel like AI is a good maybe thought partner. AI can help you rough out an outline of something, maybe do a first draft, maybe give you a broader perspective to think about. It's an enhanced thesaurus. What are 12 ways to say the word invincible to make sure that's the word I want to use? It's a thinking partner, but you can't allow it to take over your voice. You don't want to lose your voice to AI because it sounds generic. It is using jargon and cliches. It is aggregating the voice of many things that are out there and putting it into, what you're saying. Now, I recognize that AI and people who are using it in certain ways and have built their own ways of their own agents, they're able to get tighter and tighter on sounding like they want to sound. It's able to get better. And I recognize that AI will at large get better over time. But for anybody running a business or a brand, there's a do not cross line right now. And that do not cross line will move. That line will move, and it's their responsibility to know where the line is. But the do not cross line is, do not let AI degrade your brand's voice. Do not let AI degrade the customer experience. And if it is, then don't use it in that way. Like it's that simple. There's a do not cross line, which is if this is going to ruin your brand's equity, marketing, or customer experience, your job as a brand leader is to not let that happen.
Fair. So know that for yourselves, everybody. What is your do not cross line when it comes to AI? I think it's just like, I wanted to add that in there because I don't think that people are necessarily thinking about how they're using AI in terms of whether or not it's degrading their
Think
brand
about this.
voice.
Have you ever gotten an email from someone and that you know, and you're like, that's not their voice. I think that was written by AI. That's happened to me. People who I know have sent me emails saying, and I'm like, did you write that? Like, who wrote that for you? That's not your voice. I know you too well. And then other people who I really know and respect have said, yeah, I just had AI write it for me. And I'm like, I like, don't lose your mind and your voice to AI. Just maintain ownership of what you're putting out there and use any tools at your disposal to help you get there.
Okay, so I love this because one of the things that really stood out for me in the book was this concept of brand expression. And I think this conversation is meandering like perfectly into that piece because it is, first of all, another phrase that I don't think is common in the industry. I think maybe when we're talking about arts and art organizations, expression comes to the table, but not often, especially, let's say, I haven't heard it in B2B tech. So let's put it in that perspective. So when we're talking about the expression of the brand, and I mean, this is me here, right? So we're talking about an authentic brand. We're just not talking about brand expression that is generic and AI generated, but something that actually feels like the action of expressing. Right?
Yeah.
And like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, to put it into context, and very quickly, there are 3 phases of brand development that are talked about in depth throughout Brand Desire. And the first is focus. It's that insights discovery phase where you come up with that shared emotional motivation. The next is connect, where you create the brand strategy, the bookend, which is that benefit and invitation, brand idea and tagline, and then all the other components of brand strategy, like your personality and voice traits and your brand positioning statement and other things that you can imagine. And that is connect. And then evolve is the third phase. And that's all about creating evolved brand expression and experiences that address how people want to feel. So you've done all of this work. Imagine a big funnel of insights discovery, all of this rich insight you understand about people, and then it funnels down into some very specific brand language in Connect. And then you can draw back all of those insights. The funnel opens up again at the bottom, where you can start picking language and ideas and thoughts and developing lots and lots of rich information that you can use in your brand expression, like a brand messaging hierarchy. When I talked about those 3 core brand benefits, eliminate guesswork, maximize inventory performance, and unmatched partnership, underneath those sit very specific sub benefits that ladder up to those, not only for the brand in its entirety, but for different audiences. The C-suite who need to pay for this big piece of software, and the users who use this software every day have slightly different benefits. What does eliminate guesswork mean to each? The 3 components of brand expression that I document and talk about in the book, one is brand messaging. And it talks all about how to create this brand messaging hierarchy, how do's and don'ts and tips when it comes to writing, messaging style guides, and all of these things around messaging. Really rich content around how to use language in a brand experience that feels like it was designed with the customer in mind, rooted in everything you've learned. The second piece is visual identity. There have been many times when I've worked with a brand and we started out with let's evolve the brand strategy, and that turned into let's evolve the brand messaging. And then we look at the brand messaging and the personality and voice traits, and we look at the tagline and we're like, yep, the visuals need to evolve as well because they are of the past strategy. So you need to think about the visual identity as well. And how does the visual identity provide a layer of expression that is on par with the new strategy and the messaging? And then the third aspect of brand expression that I talk about in the book is sonic sound. What is the sound of your brand? And there's a lot that can be talked about there. There's a lot of explanation in the book. There are entire companies like the one I worked at that specialize just in creating sound for brands. But sound affects us subconsciously and it affects our experience. So we're not just talking about a sonic logo, and we're not just talking about like a music track for a commercial. We could be talking about the music track that's played for on hold music for your company's customer service line. When you're sitting on hold, first of all, you don't want to be there. You didn't buy a product or service expecting or wanting or desiring to go on hold and wait for someone to help you. So right off the bat, the company's job is to overcome a negative experience because you didn't plan to be there. So let's imagine that you're on hold for 5 minutes. Okay. If you were on hold for 5 minutes and it was completely silent, how many times during that 5 minutes would you think that they hung up on you and you're not sure what's going on?
Every moment.
Let's change the music track. If you were on hold for 5 minutes and there was this music track, and every 30 seconds it looped and obviously started at the beginning again, how long would you think you were on hold when you hear it looping every 30 seconds? Every 30 seconds, you'd be reminded that you've been on hold for a really long time. If it was some ambient track that kind of flowed through like waves and never seemed to repeat, you would not feel like you've been on hold as long. What if the music was really high energy music? You would be more anxious and you'd get sort of frustrated because it's amping up your energy when you're already amped up because you don't want to be there. So little nuances about music and sound can affect brand experience and affect how people feel. And you don't want them to be all amped up and angry when somebody finally gets on the phone to help them. So those are the three components of brand expression. And the other part of the chapter that talks about that is brand experience. And it talks a lot about customer experience. And, it shares a lot of examples of customer experience fails and customer experience things that are going really well. So that there are some examples of what brand leaders can think about in terms of making sure their expression and their experiences are all designed based on the insights they've learned to reflect the brand strategy and its intent, and to address at every moment how people want to feel.
Yeah, I think you used a very important word there, I think, anyway, which is design, right? Like that this is designed. And one of the key phrases I always come back to in my coaching is, what would you do? Right? So you are sitting on hold. Do we want people to sit on hold? No. Okay. That doesn't mean we can't never have someone waiting on hold, right? We have a hold machine because we have a lot of clients, and heaven forbid that happens, but it's very possibly could happen. And so if I was going to have to sit on hold and I wanted that experience to feel as good as possible for people, what would I do? Right? Would I loop the same track? Would I the one that I hate the most is there's the 30-second music track, and then at the sandwich of that, it's some kind of promotion about the company.
Promotion,
right?
yeah.
I'm already a customer, and I'm an angry customer.
Your business is really important to us. Somebody will be right with you.
Right now.
Your business is really important to us. Somebody will be right with you. Your business is really important to us. Somebody will be right with you.
The more you tell me that, the less I believe it.
Exactly.
So but these are, and one of the things I've always been since I was a young marketer, my first marketing job coming out of university, and I was we as humans, we experience marketing all the time, and we know what feels good and we know what doesn't feel good. So why would we do things that don't feel good for us to our customers? And I have to believe that's just because we're not asking the right questions, right? We're not actually looking at that part of the customer experience, because if we did look at it, we would know in a moment that is not what we would do. Right. And there's so many times where doing what we would do is actually easier, faster, and cheaper.
Yep.
We've just ignored asking ourselves that question, and therefore we do what everybody else does. Everybody hates what everybody else does. Why would we do that?
The chapter that talks about brand expression and experiences starts off with a quote from the famous designer Charles Ames, who's known for the Ames chair and many other things. And he says, the details are not the details, they make the design.
Mm.
And focusing on details. Details are so important. You know, it's the details that make things different. It's the details that address customer insight. It's the details that small details can have the biggest impact, and they should be paid attention to, and they should be thought through, just like you're saying, from a human design perspective. I mean, if I was in this situation, would I want to be on hold for 20 minutes and listen to this loop, whatever? You know, hey, let's take it a step further. There are companies out there using a wonderful technology that I bet is licensable to any company that wants to use it, where you call and they say, hi, you can either wait on hold for the next 12 minutes or we'll call you back and you won't lose your place in line. Like, why doesn't every company use that? Like, wow. No, I'll just sit here and listen for 12 minutes.
Right.
No.
I'm actually just trying to avoid my kids right now, so I'm just going to sit here on hold.
Please, just play some frenetic music that makes me really anxious.
But again, like, let's talk about this a little bit. And the rush, right? There's always so many things to do. I'm so busy doing all of the things that I don't have time to think about these important things. Kevin, I'm too busy doing all the things that have to get done. Like, I feel like there is kind of an underlying mindset that we approach brand desire from, and the types of questions that allow us to learn those types of things, that isn't just all about filling every moment of our day with a task we have to do. That there is, in order to have these, we have to have the space to ask the questions, and we have to create the space to have the questions. So in terms of allowing conversations like this to live within a business, how do we need to move away from the busyness doing marketing to the desire to understand what our customers really want from us?
There are a few things that you're calling up for me, and one of them is that we have to, as professionals, not be so busy all the time. So I have a thing that I instituted in my life 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer at this point, called No Meeting Thursdays. And it means that, it doesn't mean I'm never going to have a meeting on a Thursday, but it means that my calendar is blocked on Thursdays. Nobody could go to my website, click the Meet with Kevin button, and get a Thursday meeting. I have to allow it on the calendar. It has to be something important. I know that Thursdays are in my control. And some days that is taking meetings because I have to. But some days it's sitting on my couch for 3 hours and working on something that I need to get to, or diving deep into client work that needs hours of dedicated attention or thinking time. For a long period of time, it was spending time writing chapters in my book. So that's the first thing, is you need to make space in your day, in your week, for you to be able to think and not be catching everything that needs to be caught. Another thing, and this is another exercise I've been doing for years that is really good this time of year and any other time of year, is a continue, stop, start exercise. You go to a whiteboard, you write, okay, given what I'm doing right now and what I want to be doing next year, next period, whatever it is, here are all the things that I must continue doing. Here are the things that I should stop doing because maybe they were a good idea once, but they are no longer a good idea and they are not a good use of my time, or they're not serving the company or the brand well. And here are things we need to start doing. What are the things that we need to make time for and start doing or thinking about differently? So that could be something you're doing in your day, or that could be like, we need to start learning more about our customers. And in first quarter, we are going to do some customer interviews with our best customers. And in second quarter, we're going to do a research study. And in between that, we're going to analyze customer reviews. What are the things that you should continue doing, start doing, and then stop doing and start doing, so that because we only have so much time. So if it's about what are we going to continue doing and what are we going to start doing, and you leave out stop, you can't get it done.
Right. Well, and I think this is something that's really, there's so many conversations that I get into, and I think we've gotten to this place specifically in marketing where people are very busy doing stuff. They're posting on social media and they're doing this and they're applying for this grant and there's lots of people who have like a one person marketing coordinator team that is just, they're so busy doing all the stuff. They're making presentation decks for salespeople and like all of these things. And when there's no like no ability for someone to say like, whoa, what is the value of the stuff that we're doing, right? Because yes, I have an 8-hour-a-week job and I am spending 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, whatever, maybe 80 hours a week. I don't know. People are doing a lot of work and it seems like a lot of it is not paying off. But if we don't have any space for people to like look at and assess what are we doing and what are the benefits that it's having on us and what are the impacts, like if we are actually concerned about how what we're doing in marketing or what we're doing in customer service is impacting our customers, we don't have time to have conversations with customers. Like, what is more valuable than that from a marketing
You're spending so much time expending resource. Wouldn't it be better to do it with a solid fact base and foundation so that everything you're doing is not more, but more effective?
Right.
It's about getting to be more effective. What I talk a lot about in the book is not doing more. It's doing what you're already doing more effectively. And that's just what you're getting at right now. It's actually about leading your organization to think about customers first and to put customer insight at the center of how decisions are made. Because if there are multiple people with different roles in an organization, they're all incentivized in their job to perform at a certain level with certain KPIs or whatever you want to call it. But here's the thing. Everybody in the company is striving to deliver on the company's business growth objectives and profitability desires. And if there can be customer insight that can align everybody on the highest priority tasks, the highest priority information that would allow for product and service offerings to be exactly what customers need, want, and desire, to allow the marketing to let them know where they can find exactly what they need, want, and desire, and brand experiences that deliver on what people need, want, and desire. Isn't that going to go a long way toward fueling those business objectives and those growth and profitability objectives, as opposed to everybody running around doing things without customer insight as a guide for how things can be done most effectively and most in sync with one another? I mean, I know it sounds idealistic and simple, but for the brand leaders that take the opportunity to use customer insights as the orientation point for how decisions get made, there's a big opportunity for them and their companies.
Absolutely. And it's just like, I think about this one specific example quite often is like the company, one of the companies I worked for, they wanted like as many voices as possible from the company to write for the blog, right? Like, not necessarily a terrible idea, but there were people who would take like 8 hours to write a blog, that like a salesperson. So now instead of selling for 8 hours, they were writing a blog for 8 hours. And that blog is going to be one of 4 blogs that goes up every month, that gets liked by 3 internal employees. And like, good thing we have a goal of writing 4 blogs a month, right? Like, how much time is actually going into that? And let's be honest with ourselves and just say like, okay, right now we're doing this. How much of this actually makes sense? None of it is connected to customers at all. We don't even have any customers who are reading this, right? So why do we need to focus on having a blog? Could we take 2 hours of that 8 hours and put it towards a more meaningful activity? And if we have this, like you mentioned the word like of evolution a couple of times, right? Like, let's look at these things without like handcuffs to any of the things that we have done and say like, hey, we did that. it didn't really do anything for us. Let's let it go, or let's iterate on that to see if it can do something for us. But like, okay, if we are having conversations with our customers, and these are the types of things that they're like, there's more like depth of information that I would love here. Okay, great. That's a great opportunity for a blog. But if you don't have that, then you don't have to write a blog. You don't have to post on social every day. You don't have to post on every freaking social media network, right? Like there's a lot of things that we get caught up doing that if we brought that leadership and intention back to the table and said like, what of this is actually serving, not in our opinion, right? But in our customer's opinion, actually serving the customer, there's an opportunity to get a whole swack of time back.
There is. It's about prioritizing time for what matters most and is going to have the most impact. It's about leading with what's the objective, what is the strategy that's going to help us get to that objective, and then experimenting with different tactics and finding the ones that are going to be most effective and useful. We don't have to do every single tactic known to man because someone says you should do this. And you also don't have to, there's a behavioral science principle, cognitive bias that's around sunk cost fallacy. And it basically means stop throwing money into something that you know is not working because you think if you put more money into it, it's going to all of a sudden start to work. And I think you're so right. As we look ahead to the coming year, what are the things that are going to have the most impact? I would say starting with understanding your customers is going to pay a lot of dividends, and making decisions based on that insight is going to be one of the most important things that a brand leader can do.
Yeah. I mean, like personally, I would like to say that understanding your customers was always the most important thing to do.
It always was.
If we've been distracted from that, it's an opportunity to come back to it.
Well, I think people are distracted from it. I think that the approaches that we've taken in the past are more about believing we know what customers need, want, and desire, and not verifying that. And I also will tell you that traditional approaches to getting that information, traditional survey-based research, while it's very highly used and part of routines, it's not as effective as using behavioral science questioning and behavioral science research methods that I discovered from my behavioral science mentors actually sync with how the brain works, as opposed to survey bias and all these other things, and people post-rationalizing their feelings, telling you what they want you to hear as opposed to what they're really thinking. There's lots of research, qualitative and quantitative research methodologies out there, and they all have a purpose. But if you really want to know what people's emotional motivations are, the drivers of their decisions and their behaviors, you need to use the right techniques and methodologies to get at that, because it occurs in our subconscious. Mm-hmm. And when you ask people consciously or in the wrong way, you're limiting the accuracy of your results. So this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to document and help business and brand leaders and other consultants learn how to do, because I just look back on the industry after having that experience with these guys a bunch of years ago and said, so much is missing right now that could be helping brand leaders be more effective. And that's what I've been spending my time doing, codifying that and putting it out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we could keep talking for a very long time, but we are going to leave it at that for this time and come back for another future episode, which I'm sure you will. Kevin, first of all, where can people find the book? And two, where is the best place for them to connect with you if they would like to get into this conversation about brand desire?
Yeah. The book is available on Amazon and pretty much any online store anywhere in the world. If you would like to learn more about it or connect with me, go to branddesirebook.com. That's a page on my website. It has lots of detail on what's inside the book. It has other pages on my website about my business, about the consulting work I do, about the speaking engagements that I'm up for, corporate speaking engagements and work sessions. And there's a Meet with Kevin link at the top of every web page. And if somebody wants to click it, you will find days and times available that aren't Thursday.
I was going to say, but it won't be Thursday.
But it won't be a Thursday. And also LinkedIn. Anybody who wants to follow me on LinkedIn, thank you.
Oh, and Kevin does some fun stuff on LinkedIn too. So like, I would highly recommend following him. That's my personal opinion. I want to thank Francois and Adil for being in the conversation. Francois says he is going to read the book. I highly recommend it. And Francois is also in Calgary. So we could do like book club. Get the book. We'll both read it. And then we could do Brand Desire Book Club in Calgary.
Let's do it.
That would be fun.
I will moderate a Q&A. You organize it, Tracy. We're going to do it.
Oh, this is fun. Great idea of myself. And also Adil, coming back to that part of the conversation where we were talking about AI, that he always tells people just because you can use AI doesn't mean you should. And I always think the best way to just like pressure test that is, what would you do? And if you wouldn't do it in that scenario, don't. That doesn't mean other people aren't, but that doesn't, just because other people are doing it doesn't mean you have to. Let's use our own authenticity in these practices, people, to make good decisions about how we can generate the most brand desire for ourselves and our brands. Kevin, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. I'm excited for you and the book. I loved it. Highly recommend that people read it. And yeah, you guys, okay, very important announcement. This is episode 99 of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. Can you believe this? Oh, hi, Joy. Joy is also here. Great to see you, my friend. Which means next week, December 17th, is the 100th episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, which also happens to be our last episode of 2025. I didn't even plan it that way, you guys. That's just the universe delivering what is supposed to happen. So come and check it out, because we're having a really cool panel conversation about the power of generative conversations. And if you're not sure what that is, the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show is an example of that. It is an example of people getting into conversations, talking about a specific topic, but without having a specific destination. And if you have checked out the shows before and you're like, oh yeah, there's so much value that gets dropped along the way, none of that is mapped out in advance. And a lot of that exists because it's not mapped out in advance. So we're having a really cool conversation next week about creating that and how we can get involved in that and how we harness the power from that. So I would be very excited if you all came and checked out the 100th episode. It's so weird to say that. I can't believe we've done so many.
It's amazing. It's such a milestone. Congratulations.
Oh, so big. There will be birthday hats and there will be stuff. So come and check it out. I would really appreciate all of you. Like, come and get into the conversation and celebrate with us. And then there's going to be so many other great conversations that are happening in the new year. You guys, I can't even tell you what they all are because there's too many good ones. So keep coming back. Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. I don't know the conversion for our friends in the UK. Sorry, Joy, you know what time it starts. But come back, get into the conversation. And if brand desire or any of the conversations that you tap into from a Crazy Stupid Marketing Show point of view are priorities for you, do not let one 60-minute conversation be the end of that. Let it be the start of a recurring evolutionary conversation that takes you exactly where you need to go, because now is the time to start. You do not have to wait until 2026. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's get into conversation and let's do the meaningful marketing things together. Thank you again, Kevin. Thank you for everybody who joined us in the comments. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you. See you then.